Greg. Obviously, it helps to see some of the shots going, but for Max tonight, 6 assists, no turnovers, a couple of steals. How have you seen him kind of settle in these last couple of games and really impact things on both ends?
Yeah, I think he's always impacted the game in a positive way, and I know he hasn't shot it exceptionally well up until the last second half of Northwestern, and obviously better tonight. But he does a lot of little things that help us win. I think just the emotional leadership that he brings. I thought he was a big part of our start, not only offensively but defensively. Everybody's going to look at what we went 6 for 7 or whatever from 3 to start. It was the defensive end. I felt we were really got control of the game early, made it difficult for them to get going and get what they wanted. And Max was a big part of that, just with his presence, obviously, but also the vocal leadership that he brings.
Coach, you guys, I'm guessing, came into this game, wanted to kind of neutralize the front line and the way they pound the paint at times. Felt like you switched up a lot more, especially early in that game, than maybe you typically will. What did you just like about your interior defense and all 5 guys kind of staying connected, where Renew and Bottle went combined for 9 field goal attempts, 26 points in the paint, I think, 8 shots at the rim tonight.
Yeah, I think it starts, obviously, everybody focuses on the big-to-big matchup with Crowell and Winter and Renault and Balo, and obviously 2 really good players for those guys. But I felt it was important for us to keep the ball out of the paint, and I thought our ball screen coverage and our defense to be able to hedge and shock and keep the ball going east-west and not allow it to get deep penetration was important, because they're really good when they can play 2-on-1 downhill. Obviously, Galloway finds Balo rolling, Rice finds Balo rolling. So to try to prevent the ball from getting downhill as much as possible where we got in trouble or where we had to rotate and stop it. And I think the other thing is when the ball did go in, we were really connected and active and digging, crowding the post player, digging it loose, and firing out of that, covering for each other. There was a few possessions where we scrambled and coming out of that dig, they ran to whoever was open. We didn't necessarily, it's not a double team, but when we come scrambling out of it, we stunt and take the next guy and cover shooters. So I felt they did a really good job, especially early, like I said, being really connected and active and aggressive in those scenarios.
In the back, Coach.
Another game where you guys come out really fast, especially at home. What are you saying to the guys in the locker room before, and what is it about this group in particular that seems to really come out of the gates hot?
Yeah, there's nothing different. Anything we cover the basics, things we talk about, 4 or 5 points that really involve defending, rebounding, and taking care of the ball. And I think the biggest thing was just compete. I think that was the one message always at the end, is you can never substitute for playing hard and playing smart and playing together. And this group is a very connected group. I mean, they enjoy hanging around with each other. They're a very loose group. They're very coachable, and they want to win. And their mindsets are all on that. And they understand when we come out and play hard and are aggressive. It's not always going to be perfect, but when we do get all firing on all cylinders, we're a handful for teams. So they just enjoy competing and the moments of the game. Like, they really embrace those and talk about that a lot, about how they want to they thrive in those and are excited for games.
Michael?
In what ways has North grown in the past year to win a matchup against a guy like Balo who has more size than him and has more experience?
Yeah, I think obviously strength is one thing. I mean, he's heavier and stronger than he was a year ago, but I think the experience is the biggest piece. He's had a year under his belt now. He's guarded really good post players. Obviously, he saw what Balo was like firsthand last year at Arizona. So he's a more confident, more aggressive, more seasoned player. And I think, too, it's, you have the combination of him and Steve together from an offensive standpoint, how they both can shoot the ball from 3. It puts, defensive 4s and 5s in a little bit of a quandary at times because of his experience and how he's playing, too. I mean, it was always the question is, can we play them together? And I think he can guard 4s now. A year ago, he couldn't shift and move and keep up with mobile 4s. Like tonight, we had him guarding Luke Goody at times, so that's as mobile as a 4 or a hybrid forward as you're going to find, and his experience is really paying off for him.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Coach, you've talked about it again around this year, the shooting from the fours, both with starters and backups that came in play today. I mean, no one hits 2 threes, Carter hits 3 threes. When you're able to kind of get that, especially with Carter coming off the bench and how the crowd kind of plays into it, what does that kind of mean for your team, and how are you kind of able to evolve offensively in that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a big part, that was a big part of our off-season planning of how we constructed this roster and what we needed to, how we needed to build it. Xavier Amos was a big part of that too, in terms of we need to have 4s that will shoot the ball and can shoot the ball. So it's part how we built this team. It's part of the system that we're in right now and evolving in. And I think every day they get a little more confident and a little more really sure of themselves in their roles. And obviously Gilly's, his experience shows. I mean, it's whether he makes 3s or not, his experience and what he does on the floor, they don't stat everything, how positively he impacts the game. But obviously when he's making 3s, it's, the crowd gets into it. But to have 4s that can shoot it, and 5s, quite frankly, too. But typically, our 5s are middle ball screening and putting pressure on the rim, and then our 4s have options of sliding out or rolling, depending on the matchups. Tonight was a lot of slide outs with our 4s just because of how they were going to play. And so, yeah, when you got bigs that can shoot, we've had them here for years, but it's an important piece and it makes our offense that much better.
Jim.
I don't remember when you said it, but you seemed to imply that you thought this team had room to grow a couple weeks ago. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing. I think the thing about this group is they've kept a humility to them that they understand. They're very coachable. I mean, and I've said many times, talked about Tanjay because I get asked about John a lot, and it's a great example of a guy coming in on his 6th year, and he's played at 2 other places and has played very well. You would think he would come in with, I'm holier than thou, so to speak, or I'm better. He's complete opposite. He is such a sponge. He wants to be coach. Like I said, he's been a great teammate, and that's always your concern when you have, in today's era, how is your culture of your locker room when you have sometimes musical chairs, and making sure we really have the right people that are really good players is important of that, as important as what you can do in a stat sheet, because if it's chemically imbalanced and the chemistry is bad, it's not going to work. And he's been awesome in terms of his in the locker room, off the court, coachability, and obviously he's a heck of a player.
Go ahead, and then one in the back.
This was a young team that's coming off a really efficient performance at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
You hold them 40% shooting, 25% from 3. Just what did you like about your defense tonight, and how were you able to kind of pull them in check?
Yeah, I thought we set the tone early. Obviously I mentioned before about making 3s early, and we moved the scoreboard fast, but I thought we really were dialed in, and we were really making good decisions defensively, and at times we turned our defense into offense. So that was the main thing. I think we kept the ball out of the paint, and when it did get there, we were able to swarm and either force them into a tougher shot or force them to kick it out. So I felt we were really, connected, and again, keeping the ball out of the paint, off the dribble was a big piece of that.
In the back middle, coach.
I'm just curious, with it, you were so efficient in that first 6 minutes scoring like you did. How much of that is scout and looking for good looks that you think you might be able to get from them, and it kind of playing out that way, or was it just sort of random?
I think it's both. I think as we have evolved here offensively, they become more comfortable in pulling the trigger, I guess, so to speak, on good early shots. There was a stretch where we took a lot of mid-range jump shots, and they were auto-correcting in the huddle, like, we can't be taking those shots. Let's get the thing to the rim, or drive and kick 3s and play that way like we had earlier. So it's a combination of both. I think having the versatility and the multiple, scorers that we can put on the floor from a variety of positions helps us. And the defense has to make a decision. Who are they going to take away? Who are they going to, and the unselfishness of this group, how it moves. You have 13 assists on 26 baskets, and Klesmet with 6 assists. That just shows me the unselfishness of this group, and that's important for a really good offense. You have to be unselfish and a willing passer, and they just want to find who's open from Wisconsin. That's their mission, who's open, and they have confidence in everybody to let it fly.
One more question for Coach.
Coach, 11-4 fast break points tonight. 9 of those 11 points came from the three. Has it been a point of focus this year to look for the transition three on the break?
Yeah, I mean, analytically, it's something we do really well. I think we're really good in transition, even though we're maybe not known as a transition team. You know, just the history that we've had here. But if you boil down, even though we don't have a lot of opportunities, we're really efficient. Our points per possession in transition are really high, and they were last year too. I mean, it's just, I think it's a little byproduct of the system and how we're playing, and it's an emphasis of, yeah, let's keep coming in waves, and keep the pressure on with pace, and that's all part of the grand scheme of, you know, continuing to wear down opponents. Not going to happen. Not going to throw the knockout punch in the first 5 minutes, but let's keep coming at them, and over the course of time, you know, if we continue to develop our bench, that's a weapon and a part of the whole plan of wearing teams down.